It's 8 p.m. on a Thursday night, and I just went live. Namaste, folks. This is Harry Bowman coming to you live from my office at home on my squeaky chair. Can you hear my squeaky chair? That means it's a well sat on chair. I want to do a B12 update tonight, and I thought I'd do it from home. I've previously done a couple of B12 live streams on the weekend mornings when I've been riding my bicycle. So there are a couple of previous B12 live streams from my bicycle, but this is one I wanted to do from home because I wanted to refer to some notes. I also wanted to show you some products that I'm using now. This is not an endorsement for products or anything, but basically this is my B12 story, and it's very, very important. And it is a follow-on from two previous B12 live streams that I did on my bicycle. So thank you, Ananda and Louise and Emily and Christine and Stu for joining, and Yana, and oh, look at that, we're getting all the thumbs up already. And Danny, thanks guys for joining. B12 is a very, very important subject to talk about, and not just for vegans. It's a very, very important subject for everyone, and it's something that I'm only recently becoming more aware of. I'm learning as I go along. Steph and Geraldine, thank you for joining, and I wanted to share some of this with you guys so that hopefully my experience can help prevent issues with other people, so either with yourself or with your friends. And when I say that about your friends, I'm actually very heavily pushing my parents to check their B12 levels at the moment because of some symptoms that my father has. So, because it's very prevalent once we get into the older people. So, and Bowden, thank you for joining. So, tonight I want to give you a rundown on what B12 is, why it's so damn important, and why it's important for everyone. So, you know, I've been doing research, a lot of this in the last month. I've spoken to a couple of health professionals about this. I've got my own experience as a long-term vegan, and all of these factors combine to present a situation which I could have prevented had I been more aware decades ago, basically, and I wasn't. So now that I'm aware, and now that we have the internet and I can do the research and we can do these live streams, I'm aware of my situation with how B12 has affected me. And I'm hoping that I can pass that on and make other people aware so that this doesn't become a problem for other people. So let's get on with it, and let's just set some foundation here of what B12 is. It's a vitamin that helps with our nervous system. It helps with blood cell formation, digestion, and brain function, and it prevents anemia, and it also enhances our mood. So it helps to prevent depression. B12 is something that we don't make in our own bodies, and we need to get it through either our diets or supplementation. It's also important to note that it's a water-soluble vitamin, so it needs to be replenished every single day. Now that's an important thing. It doesn't get stored in our bodies like fat-soluble vitamins. In fact, being a water-soluble vitamin, if you have an excess, then it's excreted through your urine, and you'll actually see that. Sometimes you might see that when your urine's really yellow. So it's something that we need every day. Now, it's crucial for healthy brain and immune system. And as I was saying, it helps make DNA, nerve, and blood cells. And without it, there is some pretty major issues that you can have. Now, this doesn't just apply to vegans. This applies to everyone, because I've read figures between 20 to 40% of adults, especially once you get over the age of 50, can suffer from the symptoms of B12 deficiency. Basically, once you get over the age of 50, this is generally speaking, but once you get into your older years, the gut has more difficulty absorbing B12. Now, B12, I might actually just refer to something here. Let me just, here we go. We'll bring something up here. There's some really good information here. When you research B12, one of the myths that you'll come across is that it is naturally occurring in animals. This is not correct. It is actually a bacteria. It's produced by bacteria, I should say, not animals or plants. Animals, including humans, must obtain it directly or indirectly from bacteria. It can be found in bacteria-laden manure and unsanitized water, although we should not obviously be consuming a lot of manure or unsanitized water. It can also be found in our intestinal tract. So it's important to realize that that's the first myth. And thank you for everyone I can see that's joined there. Awesome to have everyone watching. If you've missed some of the beginning of this live stream, I'll probably be repeating it in any case as I go on. The reason why many animal foods contain high levels of B12 is because they accumulate the bacteria during their lives, and also because livestock is supplemented with B12 in their feed. So often B12 deficiency won't show up in somebody eating animal products because of those reasons, but it will more likely show up in a shorter period of time if somebody's not having any animal products at all. I was reading somewhere where our reserves of B12 can last 3 to 5 years, I believe it is. But when you're in a situation where I am, where you're a long-term vegan and you have literally not been supplementing for decades, and I never supplemented for decades. I went vegan in 1980 at the age of 16, never heard of B12. In fact, didn't know much about B12 until probably a decade ago. In all that time, I never supplemented. It's amazing that I've actually done so damn well without B12. It really, when I started looking at all the information about it, I have to say it's a testament to my vegan lifestyle that I've done so well without supplementing. Because it can be really, really terrible, the effects that lack of B12 can have. And it's only in the last few years that symptoms that I've not been able to put my finger on, not been able to work out what they've come from, now seem to be coming from low B12. And this is backed up with blood test results that I've had recently. So just see if I've got any more information there. I just want to tell you about what B12. In the past, B12 from bacteria was naturally and more reliably present in plant foods. However, today, with hygienic practices, along with soil being exposed to more antibiotics and pesticides, most plant foods are no longer reliable sources of this bacterial product. Some plant foods still have them, certain mushrooms and seaweed, and of course, a lot of them are fortified, such as cereals, non-dairy milks, nutritional yeast, etc. So, who is at risk? And what are some of the symptoms? Frankie, you had a deficiency. Olivia says very interesting. And Frankie says you had a deficiency about 10 years ago. Frankie, I'd love to hear what you did about that. That would be interesting for me to know that. Because Frankie, you're vegan now, I think, well, it's over 40 years, isn't it? You're vegan longer than me. I think you might be 41 years vegan now, which is, yes. So please share with us what your experiences were there. Who is at risk? Many people appear to be at risk. B12 deficiencies are fairly common in the general population. One study found 40% of children and adults in Latin America were deficient or marginally deficient. Another study found 20% aged over the age of 60 in the US had a marginal status for B12. Frankie had injections. Yes. Well, this is what my B12 journey has led to, and I'll tell you why it's led to me having injections and why that's really important. I will get to that. Janine says, that reminds me, gets up and goes and takes a B12 supplement. Good on you, Janine. Another review found 40% of patients in the US had unexplained low B12 levels. 40%, that's nearly half the population. Researchers attribute this to food cobalamin malabsorption. meaning that B12 that's present, naturally present in foods, is simply not absorbed. And this is a very important thing about B12 not being absorbed. Now, Danny says you have low vitamin B12 as well. So, Danny, can you tell me, have you done something about that? And can you tell me what your figure was? Can you tell me how low it was? Can anyone beat, well, I know, well, it's not something you want to beat. Mine was 193. I previously mistakenly said it was 180. It was 193 because I rechecked my blood test results, which I have pages and pages of there. Just rechecked them just recently because I'm working with Amanda Benham and she's been helping me. Danny says I have shots. I don't know the figures. Have the shots? Yeah, Christine, that's right. I was thinking of you, Christine. Yours was 120. 120 is extremely scary. And the reason why it's really scary is because long-term, low-level B12 deficiency can lead to a whole heap of mental and physical issues, neurological issues, even psychosis, which probably explains the way I act half the time. Some friends would go, yep, we think it had an effect on you. Oh, and Frankie says the phone died. Frankie, yeah, did you find the injections made a big difference for you? That's what I'd like to ask from you. So basically, let's just get through here a bit more. Let me just, there's a number of things that affect your B12 absorption as well. Long-term use of antacids, alcohol abuse, smoking, etc. That can affect it. So, okay, let me just refer to my other notes here. Right, so I have been, my B12 awareness started a couple of months ago when I had a blood test just to see how things were going. At the time, the doctor said, yes, he said, you're good in all areas. He said, you're a bit low in two areas. One of them was B12. He said, you have got enough, but not enough to share. That was his description. However, once I mentioned this to my vegan naturopath friend, Colleen Checkatree, she made me aware that that level was way too low. I'll get a comment there from Ralph saying, hi, mate, my understanding is B12 supplies can be stored in the body sometimes for years, possibly leading us to think that we are getting from food. Given that we don't know when we run out to buy blood tests, my thought would be to take the minimum days which I do the squid in the mouth daily. What happens when we run out? This can result in permanent brain damage. Exactly, Ralph, and that is exactly right. Christy says they took away, I think, B19. Okay, Christy, you'd have to explain what you mean by that. I'm not sure. Frankie says, yes, massively to the injections helping. I was so deficient, it was scary. I had numb fingers. Yep. Doctor wanted to inject once a month. I made him do injections once a week until I was in the normal range. I'm doing weekly injections now. In fact, I've got a friend that was doing daily injections just to get his level back up. He told me this a couple of weeks ago. So his level was so low, he was self-injecting daily and then went to weekly injections. So, okay, so back to my situation. So with so I approached Colleen Checkatree, vegan and naturopath, and she advised me to go from cyanocobalamin that I was taking a spray under the tongue every morning, and obviously it wasn't having any effect, wasn't absorbing properly of that. So she advised me to go to methylcobalamin, which I went to, which is a dissolvable tablet, and that had an immediate pick up in my mood and energy levels. And Frankie says, I use nutritional yeast and B12 sublinguals now. Yes, excellent. And Ralph says, sorry about the typos. Well done on the informative videos. Thanks, Ralph. So I was, okay, so let's just cut. So basically I started taking the tablets thinking, okay, this is going to get my B12 levels up. 3 weeks ago on the Vegan Hour, or just over 2 weeks ago, I interviewed Amanda Benham. Now, if you haven't seen that episode, highly recommend you watch that. That's episode 12. It's on my YouTube channel. Now, Amanda is she's a accredited practicing dietitian and nutritionist. She's been vegan for 35 years. She's got 2 children that's been vegan all their life, one of which has been on Kamina. She's been on my show. She's 30 years old. And Amanda has a son who's 27 years old. They've been vegan all their life. Amanda knows her stuff. She's got PhD. She's got, she's just done so much studies. She's doing a master's degree in something now. I haven't got all the details here, but anyway, after she was on the show, I got her to have a look at my blood test results, and she was extremely concerned that I had a B12 level of 193. Anything below 200 is warning bells. She said, she warned me that long-term low levels affect your mental and physical health, could create possible psychosis and possibly irreversible neurological damage. What she said to me is that in my particular case, and this is very important because it's on an individual case, you need to approach somebody that knows their stuff and that can work with you. So I've been working with Amanda to get my levels back up since then. And this is only, what, the 3rd week? So this is because I had my 3rd injection today. So what she said was it appeared that I was not absorbing it through the gut. There could be different reasons for this. My age, which I will be 54 this year, is one factor. There could be other reasons why I was not absorbing B12 properly through the gut. So she said, you really need to get injections. You really need to look at that. It's pretty sort of urgent. If you've had long-term low levels, it can be having a really bad effect on you. Now, the next day I booked in for the doctor, went down, got my first injection. My experience after the first injection was basically, I actually felt worse. I actually felt flat. For the next week, and this is only 2 weeks ago, for that next week, I was really tired. I was just worn out. I was having massive long naps. I was struggling at work. I didn't want to really go out at night or anything. I was just like, oh. And I thought, wow, what the hell is going on here? So that was after the first injection. Last Friday, I had the 2nd injection, and wow, what a difference that made. What a real difference that made. The nurse who injected me said, well, you would normally not notice a difference until after your 3rd injection. So, but the 2nd injection, that made a big difference. The difference was, that was on the Friday afternoon. Saturday morning, I woke up, and I had, the best way of describing it was, I had that feeling you have when you fall in love. You know, you wake up and everything's pretty good, you know. You just wake up and you think, damn, I feel good, you know. And you can't wait to get out there and experience life. And you're just like, man, the day is beautiful. Even if it's a thunderstorm and it's pouring rain, you know, that feeling. So I had that feeling last Saturday of last week, Saturday morning. I got on the bike, I rode, my mood was awesome. I felt great. My energy levels were good. My bicycle riding was excellent. I thought, wow, I really got energy here that I haven't had previously. So that was after the 2nd injection. Michelle said too much information. Michelle, I don't even go more than 1% the amount of information I can give about some parts of my life. Ralph says, my B12 in the blood test was quite down. Okay, Ralph, what did you do about, you mentioned injections earlier or not? No, you didn't. What did you do about that? Yana says, I've been struggling with depression, and the doc immediately ordered I get blood tests. Your result came back 585. 585 should be okay. Doc said you were okay and didn't say much else. Where does my figure stand in the big picture of B12 figures? Okay, from what I've been told, from what I've researched, you should be aiming for around the 500 and above. Some figures I've heard are in the thousands, but I've also heard that you can't have too much B12, although I did read one thing that said recent studies have showed that possibly that may not be the case, that too much B12 could be complicit in causing cancer. I haven't done much research on that. I just read a little bit about that today, so I'm not going to go into that at the moment. Yana says, where does my figure stand in the big picture? Well, Yana, 585 is considered okay. I'm a bit confused which B12 to take. Someone says take one type and another Someone says to take a different. Sorry, I cannot produce, let alone spell the 2 types. Well, there's actually 4 types. Here we go, 4 types. Cyano, methyl, the injectable one, which I can't remember what it is, and another type. I can't give you advice on what to take, Yana. I can only stress that you should be dealing with a health professional, a vegan health professional, who knows their stuff, that isn't going to turn around and say, oh yeah, you need to be getting it from animal products. You know, so that would be my advice. Ralph says, Robin Tudor is like Amanda from New South Wales, put me on some Lingle's blood tests soon after I said my name was spot on. I think you mean your number was spot on. My level was spot on, not name, yes. Holy mackerel, Danny. Okay, Danny, your last B12 level was 150. Is that really low? Danny, that's dangerous, very dangerous. Mine was 193 and Amanda was extremely concerned. 150 means, Danny, I would, and again, I don't like to give advice because I'm not, obviously not qualified, but I would go and see your doctor tomorrow. I would go and see your doctor and say you have heard that anything below 200 is a worry. If you want to Google it, Google low B12 deficiency, maybe put low B12 levels vegan, maybe Google that. And oh, you've been on shots since then. Okay, right, good. Okay, excellent. Right, so let's get back. So after the second, so the reason I went onto the shots was because Amanda was saying I was not absorbing it through my gut. So the shots get it into the bloodstream, and that it starts to help with energy levels and mental functioning, mood, sleep, digestion, all the different things that I was having issues with, that starts to help with. So now, so let's just have a look here. So basically I'm just going through my notes to see some things here that I need to cover. So basically I'd had decades of no supplementation. And then I'd had the last maybe 2 or 3 years where I was getting symptoms that were worrying me, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I was thinking it was not chronic fatigue. I was thinking it was adrenal stress. I was a few different scenarios I was looking at. So I've been working on it from different angles, and it was when the blood test results came back, and I looked at it and went, "Wow, that's an issue being that lower level." And I looked at my symptoms. Now, with the symptoms of low B12, this can come from other things. Let me go through the symptoms. It can come from other things. This is why you need to have a blood test and to see if it's B12 levels. I've spoken to my parents today because my dad's been experiencing some symptoms that have me worried. And I've said, they had a blood test a couple of weeks ago. They haven't seen the results yet. So they got onto the doctor. They rang the doctor after I spoke to them today, and they're going to find out. I said, I want to know what your number is. I said, I don't have the doctor just tell you, yes, it's okay. I said, I want to hear the number because you've got symptoms that may be because of low B12, but let's rule it out. Let's find out whether it is or it isn't. So symptoms, okay. Again, symptoms of low B12 can be caused by these symptoms can be caused by many different things. May not be low B12, but you can rule it out by having a blood test. Fatigue, weakness, disorientation, brain fog, memory loss, inability to concentrate, tingling of your limbs, depression and mood changes. I'm ticking off a lot of these for me personally because these are a lot of things that I've been experiencing in the last couple of years. Some of them longer than that. Paranoia, no, I'm sorry, not that one. Hallucinations, I wish, it might make life interesting. Dementia, nerve damage, insomnia, bowel and bladder control, constipation, blurred vision. Okay, so some of the ones I mentioned at the beginning there, definitely fatigue and weakness. They're things that have been sort of, they've been deteriorating, getting worse over the last couple of years. brain fog and memory loss and inability to concentrate. Those are the symptoms that have been really sort of like, what is going on here, you know? And tingling of the limbs, which I started getting in one of my feet in the last couple of years, and I was like probably in the last year or two. And I thought, what is causing that? So, and depression and mood changes. Again, these are things that I personally thought, okay, what's causing it? So let's just have a look at some other things here that are important, and before I continue on. Okay, so just to reiterate, this comes from some of the notes I've got here come from different sources. I found a really good source, which I'm going to get some information from here in a moment, which is the Forks Over Knives website. Has some really good stuff. B12 is called the energy vitamin. If you don't have enough and you don't get enough red blood cell production, some of the earliest signs of a deficiency are like feeling dragged, confused, and weak. Feelings of dragged, confused, and weak. Maybe that should be feeling drugged. I don't know. It says dragged. The problem is that these clues are so vague that not everyone experiences them the same way, and they can be attributed to so many other possible triggers. So most people don't think to be tested. So if the symptoms hit and stick around for weeks, it's best to go and see your doctor and rule out other causes and get tested. Similar things include dizziness, impaired thinking, and confusion. Now, it can be hard to recognize a B12 deficiency is another thing, because the body can store it for 3 to 5 years. Early symptoms might appear gradually, so you're unlikely to notice them. And that's been my case. It's been a gradual change. And it's like, okay, what's happening here? Am I working a bit too hard at work? Am I doing too many things in my life during the day or after work or whatever? You know, is that, you know, and then eventually after a couple of years, you start thinking, no, this isn't going away. It's actually, it's sticking with me. This is what happened in my case. After initial clues like fatigue, weakness, and brain fog, more advanced tip-offs show up, such as numbness and tingling of the limbs, depression, paranoia, and even hallucinations. But the signs are so varied that it doesn't strike everyone, so it's tough to diagnose even at a later stage. Depletion of your vitamin B12 leads to nerve damage. Pins and needles in your hands and feet, shaky body movements, trouble walking, they're all signs of low B12 deficiency. So, okay, so what I've done, today I had my 3rd injection. Just going back to the injections, today I had my 3rd injection. And yeah, I feel good. I mean, I haven't noticed any change from the injection today. I'll probably wake up tomorrow and feel I'm in love again. But what Amanda Benham recommended after looking at my blood test results was, you know, keep the injections weekly, get the results up, and then go on to, this is what she recommended. I'm going to have to bring it up here. Okay. Product placement. What's it, the brand? It's Now is the brand. Now. B12. This is 3 types, nervous system health. This is 3 types of B12. Vegan, of course, vegan. It says vegetarian, vegan there, right? 3 types of B12 I got from iHerb, and there's 100 lozenges in there. She recommended that particular one, so I went and ordered that. In my particular case, she also recommended 2 other things to help me, which are both, you can see, I love that prominently display the word vegan on there. Vegan omega-3 DHA, derived from algae, and vegan multivitamin and mineral supplements. This is for me to help me in my case. This may not be necessary for you, but as it says up there on this, on which one? This one, non-fish. Okay, so I've started, these arrived yesterday, I think it was. What's today? Yeah, yesterday. So I had them last night for the first time and again this morning. Catherine says, Amanda Benham, is that her name? Yes, Catherine, after this live stream, I'll actually, I might even be able to do it now. She runs the Human Herbivore. So let's see if I can bring up her site. Okay, I will give you a link now because that is the marvels of modern technology. Let's give you a link. Just putting it in here. Catherine, going to put Amanda's link in now. Human herbivore. She knows her stuff. Okay, so go along and or contact her, I should say. She can do Skype sessions. And yeah, she's definitely a lot of credit to you, Amanda. I told her I'd be doing a live stream tonight, and she actually said that something very, very important that she wanted me to share with everyone, and I've got it here. Please, this is from Amanda Benham. She says, please warn others not to experiment on themselves and to take B12 from when they go vegan. Women who aren't taking B12 and fall pregnant have an increased risk of the baby having a neural tube defect or being born with an intellectual disability. And I've since read other stuff today that also confirms that. So very, very important. She's done a lot of research on B12. She knows her stuff. Highly recommend that you get in touch with her. And I'm really, really grateful that I got the chance to, I can work with her in that she's advising me and helping me to get my B12 levels up in a way that's working for me, because supplements weren't working. I've needed the injections to be able to get the B12 into my system to get me back up to the point where, I'm feeling like I've got energy. This morning was great, actually. Did my push-ups. I'm just like, oh, this is great. Just powering through the push-ups going, this is good. This is how it should be. This is reminding me of the way I used to be. So I feel what I feel now after this is my third injection today. So it's really only over the last 2 weeks I've had these injections. What I feel is a sense of hope for the future for myself as far as my health and that goes. I feel a sense of real hope and of real, this is the way that I should be feeling again. I know I've got further to go. I mean, it's very, very early stages yet, but this is yes, this is the way I should be feeling. My symptoms are improving, if that's the right way of describing it. And so I just, I feel really good. And another thing is that as this being my 38th year of being a vegan, I actually feel like it's a real confirmation of how important it is to be vegan, because once my B12 levels have started improving, which they obviously are, because I can tell the difference in my mood and my energy, I'm starting to go, wow, this is how a vegan should feel. Because I haven't felt this way for the last couple of years, and I'm thinking, this is great. This is a really good endorsement, I guess, and so I feel really hopeful and confident that things will continue to improve. Michelle says, what levels are best? Michelle, from what I've read, and this is not coming from Amanda, but this is just from what I've read, should be aiming for at least around 500. Most doctors say you are fine if you're just near the bottom level. Yeah, well, I have to say, it wasn't my doctor, but the doctor that gave me the blood test results in March, I think it was, who said, yes, your levels are within range, it's okay, but you haven't got enough to share with anyone else, was his way of describing it. At 193, when you Google it, when you research it, or when you talk to an accredited dietitian or a naturopath, they will tell you straight away that at that level below 200 is very dangerous. The long-term risk is really bad. So, okay. Now, I just want to finish up with a couple of other points here. A couple of things from Forks Over Knives, actually. It's really good information here. Are animal foods a good source of B12? While animal foods contain high amounts of protein-bound B12, they are not an ideal source for two main reasons. First, protein-bound B12 in animal foods can be difficult for some people to absorb, particularly those who don't have appropriate amounts of gastric acid to cleave the protein from the vitamin. Secondly, animal foods are not the best source because consuming them increases our levels of IGF-1, a hormone consistently associated with increased cancer risk and tumor growth. well, I was going to mention cancer risk earlier, but they've mentioned it here nicely. And it also increases TMAO, which is a substance that injures the lining of our blood vessels and promotes cholesterol plaque, as well as other unhealthy substances such as heme iron, which is associated with oxidative stress and the formation of free radicals. So if you're getting your B12 from animal products, which obviously I'm never going to recommend, of course, you are getting your B12 whilst at the same time increasing your levels of IGF-1, TMAO, heme iron, which causes oxidative stress and formation of free radicals. So you're sort of getting one thing and ruining your health the other way at the same time. The recent past president of the American College of Cardiology stated during his tenure that the extensive medical evidence linking TMAO to cardiovascular disease was, in his opinion, sufficient reason for people to avoid consuming all animal food, even without considering all of the other highly problematic health issues associated with meat, dairy, and eggs. So we've covered most of the B12 stuff here. Deficiencies, we've covered that. What happens if you overlook or you ignore your deficiencies? You end up with what we've said before, neuropsychiatric symptoms. Doesn't sound like fun, does it? Neuropsychiatric symptoms. Not something that I'd wish on anyone, including myself. So who should take a supplement or get tested? Everyone should monitor their B12 status or take a supplement or both. This is a deficiency that's usually easy for a medical professional to identify and treat. It's interesting to realize that people in Australia, once you get to a certain age, like my parents' age, they give you B12 injections. The doctor gives you 4 injections a year as a regular thing in any case, because they're aware that you're going to have trouble absorbing B12 through your diet. For most people with no known deficiency, a blood test at your annual physical is normally appropriate. So a yearly blood test. Keep in mind it can be stored in the liver for a few years, and keep our blood levels high, even if you're no longer absorbing it. And there are other tests you can do as well. Okay, the methylmalonic acid and homocysteine levels. Yeah. So what's the bottom line? It's B12. It's an important and necessary nutrient. Animal foods are not the best source due to the health issues. Everyone should monitor their B12 levels and ensure they have a reliable source by taking a vitamin supplement or a B12 fortified plant foods or both. Avoiding vitamin B12 deficiency is easy and inexpensive, and it's something we should be mindful of. And if you get tested and you have really low levels, please take it from my experience to then get injections and get them frequently to get your levels up, because long-term low B12 levels can cause irreversible neurological damage. And so that's a really, really serious thing. So when you're getting into older age and you're finding people that have dementia, having maybe hallucinations and things like that, if you've got your parents or friends that are in that area, it would be very wise, in my opinion, to push for them to check what their B12 levels are, just in case that may be a factor towards the way that their mental health is, because it could be a factor possibly. There could be so many other reasons, but this is an easy one to look at, you know. So yeah, so there we go. I think that's my B12 update. This is an update to the 2 bicycle live stream B12 stories I did about my experiences in the last month. And thank you very much for watching, everyone. If you've got any questions, you can ask at any time. You can either private message me, or I highly recommend, better than that, contact Amanda Benham from The Human Herbivore, and I'll also put a link up to the vegan hour that we did just over 2 weeks ago with Amanda, and you can have a look at what she talks about there too, because she really knows her stuff. She can really help. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. Let's keep on top of B12. This is one that we just shouldn't have an excuse for ever letting it get low in that. I've learned. I hope that I'll be able to get my levels back up. I hope that it hasn't caused any, it's made all my hair fall out, but I hope it hasn't ruined my dad jokes, but I hope it hasn't caused any problems long term. And thank you for watching. Live vegan and save lives. And I hope to speak to you soon, probably live stream on the weekend on the bike rides. So ahimsa and good night.